Times on WION. World is One.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan John.
And I'm Kripa. And on the show today, a war of blockades over the Strait of Hormuz, with both US and Iran pushing to intercept and seize commercial vessels.
Also on World DNA, we look domestically at the elections taking place, the latest from the high-stakes elections in West Bengal and Tamil Nadu, as voters head to polls to determine the future of state politics in these two respective states. Let's start with the headlines first.
West Bengal and Tamil Nadu vote after high-intensity campaign. In Bengal, 152 seats are polling in first phase, with direct contest between ruling TMC and BJP. In Tamil Nadu, all 234 seats are voting in a single phase in a triangular contest.
Iran's president slams US for hypocritical and contradictory behavior, says Tehran welcomes dialogue and agreement, calls bad faith, siege and threats the main obstacles to genuine negotiations.
White House says US President Donald Trump does not view Iran's seizure of 2 container ships as a ceasefire violation, arguing the vessels were international and not American or Israeli.
Iran says it will not reopen the Strait of Hormuz as long as a US naval blockade continues, with Iranian Parliament Speaker Ghalibaf saying a complete ceasefire only has meaning if it is not violated by such a blockade.
White House says Donald Trump has not set a deadline for Iran to submit a peace proposal. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt rejects reports suggesting a fixed time frame, saying any timeline will be decided by the US president.
Trump says Iran halted plans to execute 8 women arrested over anti-government protests after Trump urged Tehran to release them to help peace talks. Iran's judiciary calls these claims false news, saying that the women never faced the death penalty.
Israel and Lebanon to hold a new round of talks in Washington today, with Beirut planning to request 1-month extension of ceasefire. Israel says it has no serious disagreements with Lebanon, calling for cooperation against Hezbollah.
Turkish parliament votes to prevent children under the age of 15 from accessing social media platforms. New law also requires digital platforms to introduce age verification systems to enforce restriction.
Minutes of the April Reserve Bank of India meeting show policymakers are likely to remain in a wait-and-watch mode. That is a decisive shift away from rate cuts, as West Asia conflict has led to negative supply shock with material implications for both growth and inflation.
The fragile ceasefire between Iran and the US has been extended even after Donald Trump had said that it'll be unlikely that it'll extend, but that's what happened now.
But there is a war of blockades over the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has vowed not to reopen the waterway as long as the US naval blockade remained in place, announcing seizure of 2 ships trying to cross the strait.
Well, Iranian state TV shared a video purportedly showing armed soldiers boarding the 2 container ships. According to Iran's Revolutionary Guards, one of the seized ships, the Liberian-flagged container vessel named Ipame Nondas, was en route to India. The second ship, the Panama-flagged container MSC Francesca, was headed to Sri Lanka.
According to Iranian media, a third vessel identified as the Greek-owned Euphoria was also targeted by Iran officials and it is now stranded near Iran's coast.
Now, the IRGC says that the ships endangered maritime security by operating without the necessary permits and tampering with navigation systems. The seizures mark the first time that Iran has taken control of ships since the beginning of this war.
Well, it comes after the US fired on and seized an Iranian cargo vessel and boarded an Iranian oil tanker in the Indian Ocean. The White House said that US President Donald Trump does not consider seizure of these ships to be a ceasefire violation because the vessels are not American or Israeli. It also said that Trump has not set a deadline for Iran to submit a peace proposal.
I know there's been some anonymous sourced reporting that there was maybe a 3 to 5 day deadline. That is not true. The president has not set a deadline himself. Ultimately, he will dictate the timetable.
Well, the White House said President Trump wants to see a unified response from Iran's leadership to an American proposal to end hostilities, adding that Trump was satisfied with the ongoing US naval blockade.
It's a battle between the pragmatists and the hardliners in Iran right now, and the president wants a unified response. And so as we await that response, there's a ceasefire with the military and kinetic strikes, but Operation Economic Fury continues, and the effective and successful naval blockade continues as well.
According to U.S. Central Command, U.S. forces had directed 31 vessels to turn around or return to port since the start of its blockade against ships entering or exiting Iranian ports.
Earlier, Trump used social media to announce an indefinite extension of the 2-week ceasefire with Iran. And despite what appeared to be a unilateral ceasefire extension, U.S. maintained a naval blockade of Iranian ports, a move Tehran officials call is no different from bombardment.
Now, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said that the U.S. breach of commitments and its blockade of Iranian ports and threats are the main obstacles to genuine negotiations.
Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, Speaker of the Iranian Parliament and lead negotiator from the Iranian side, said that a complete ceasefire only makes sense if it is not violated by the Maritime Blockade, the hostage-taking of the world's economy and Israel's warmongering.
In a show of defiance, Iran showcased some of its ballistic weapons at a parade in Tehran. Images displayed a large banner in the background with a fist choking off the strait.
And there's more on this from our colleague Susan, who sends us this report from New York.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says that President Trump does not view Iran's seizure of 2 international container ships as a ceasefire violation because the vessels were neither American nor Israeli. She also clarified that President Trump has not set a firm deadline for Iran to submit a new peace proposal, saying that the timeline will be determined by the commander-in-chief. At the same time, new scrutiny is now growing over Iran's remaining military strength. Defense Intelligence Agency Director Lieutenant General James Adams told Congress that despite major degradation from coalition strikes during Operation Epic Fury, Tehran still retains thousands of missiles and one-way attack drones as well, capable of threatening U.S. and partner forces across the region. So this creates a clear contradiction. publicly, on the one hand, the administration is projecting controlled diplomacy, but intelligence officials are warning that Iran still has significant strike capability. So the ceasefire may be holding politically, but militarily the threat is far from over. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Israeli strikes have killed 5 people in Lebanon, including a journalist, despite an ongoing ceasefire.
Amal Khalil was covering developments near the town of Al-Tairi with photographer Zainab Faraj when an Israeli strike hit the vehicle in front of them. They ran into a nearby house to take cover, which was then also targeted by an Israeli strike, and they did not survive. Rescuers were able to retrieve the bodies of the 2 people killed in these strikes, as well as Faraj, who was seriously wounded.
But Khalil remained under the rubble for 6 hours before the Lebanese Army, Civil Defense and the Lebanese Red Cross were able to return to the scene hours later.
Well, the strikes were reported on the eve of the second round of direct talks to be held between Israeli and Lebanese officials in Washington on extending the ceasefire that went into effect on Friday.
Well, the 2 countries officially at war for decades held a meeting in Washington on April 14, the first of its kind since 1993. And this is in an attempt to put an end to the more than 6-week war between Hezbollah and Israel. The United States announced a 10-day truce shortly after the first meeting, and it is due to expire on Sunday. As in the previous round, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will bring together Israeli ambassador and Lebanese ambassador in the presence of the U.S. ambassador to Lebanon, Michael Issa. According to reports, U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, is now also expected to join this meeting. Well, Lebanese President Joseph Aoun on Wednesday said that talks are underway to extend the ceasefire period. A Lebanese official told AFP that in the meeting in Washington, Beirut will request an extension of truce for 1 month, an end to Israel's bombing and destruction in the areas where it is present, and even a commitment to the ceasefire. The U.S. Navy's top civilian official is leaving his job. Pentagon has announced that Secretary of the Navy John Phelan will leave office immediately. This is without providing an explanation for the sudden exit. Phelan's departure follows the removal of top U.S. Army Officer General Randy George and 2 other senior officers earlier this month. In a statement on X, Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell said that Phelan is departing the administration effective immediately. He would be replaced in an acting capacity by Under Secretary Hung Chau. Phelan, a civilian who had not previously served in the military, was sworn in as Secretary of the Navy in March 2025 after being nominated by President Donald Trump in 2024. Now, according to the New York Times, Phelan's removal came after months of growing friction with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Officials said disagreements had been building over the management style, staffing decisions, and Navy's new expansion effort known as the Golden Fleet. Well, since returning to office early last year, President Donald Trump has overseen a purge of top military personnel, including the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Charles C.Q. Brown, whom he fired without explanation in February 2025. Well, other senior officers dismissed include the heads of the U.S. Navy and the Coast Guard, the general who headed the National Security Agency, the Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force, a Navy admiral assigned to NATO, and 3 top military lawyers. And let's not forget the voluntary retirement, which was asked from the Army Chief of Staff. Well, U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has insisted the president is simply choosing the leaders he wants. But Democratic lawmakers have raised concerns about the potential politicization of the traditionally neutral U.S. military. Singapore is sounding a global warning that rising tensions at key maritime choke points could be a precursor to a far more dangerous conflict in the Pacific. Well, according to Singapore's Foreign Minister, Vivian Balakrishnan, the current disruption in the Strait of Hormuz may only be a dry run for a potential confrontation between the United States and China, a rivalry that has been building for decades. Speaking at the CNBC Converge Live event in Singapore, Balakrishnan cautioned that escalation between Washington and Beijing in the Eastern Pacific will have devastating consequences for global stability. The foreign minister ruled out taking sides, saying Singapore will act in its long-term national interest.
Well, the US is Singapore's largest foreign investor, with thousands of American companies operating in the city-state, even as Singapore runs a goods trade deficit of around $3.6 billion with Washington. At the same time, China remains Singapore's largest trading partner.
Singapore sits at the southern gateway to one of the world's most vital maritime corridors, linking the Indian Ocean through the Strait of Malacca to the South China Sea and onward to the Pacific. Recent conflicts in West Asia have proved that choke points matter. The Strait of Hormuz carries roughly 20% of global energy trade, but the Strait of Malacca handles even more, over 25%, making it one of the most critical arteries of global commerce.
Well, concerns have also emerged over the possibility of tolls being imposed on these routes. It was reported in March that Tehran was considering imposing tolls on vessels passing through the Strait of Hormuz, prompting speculation that similar measures could be explored elsewhere.
But Singapore has rejected that notion. Singapore, along with Malaysia and Indonesia, the three nations bordering the Strait of Malacca, they say they share a common interest in keeping the waterway open and free.
Russia says that it will halt the supply of Kazakh crude oil to Germany via the Druzhba pipeline starting May 1st.
The move could test Europe's energy resilience at a time of heightened global uncertainty due to blockade of the Hormuz Strait. Druzhba is a key facility that provides the bulk of fuel to Berlin and surrounding regions. The refinery currently depends on Kazakh oil for about 17% of its supply. Last year alone, more than 2 million metric tons of Kazakh crude was delivered to Germany through the northern branch of the Druzhba pipeline.
Well, this pipeline is one of the world's largest oil pipeline network, stretching 5,500 kilometers. It begins in Russia's Almatyevsk region, carrying oil from Siberia and the Urals. It then splits at Meteor in Belarus. The northern division of the Druzhba pipeline continues to play a strategic role in supplying Russian crude oil to Belarus, Germany, all the way to Poland, as you can see on the map. And Russia's Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak attributed the decision to technical reasons, but he did not provide further details.
Starting from May 1st, crude oil shipped via the Druzhba route that had previously gone to Germany will be redirected to other available logistical routes. This is due to current technical capabilities. The process is being handled by Ministry of Energy and Transneft. All the relevant instructions have been received.
And the move comes after Ukraine resumed pumping Russian oil through the pipeline into Hungary and Slovakia, ending months of deadlock over a €90 billion funding from the European Union.
Europe is facing broader energy crisis, war in Ukraine, and blockade of Hormuz Strait threatens to upend European energy markets. German authorities have moved quickly to reassure the public. The Economy Ministry said existing supply options will be used to fill the gap. Marking a major positive shift for Ukraine, the European Union has unlocked a $106 billion loan for Kyiv.
Well, Ukraine received preliminary approval from the 27 EU countries after the deadlock was brokered in a months-long row between Ukraine and Hungary over a damaged pipeline. Cypriot EU presidency said that the final approval can come by Thursday as Budapest waits for Russian oil to arrive through the Druzhba pipeline. This pipeline runs through Ukraine, as we've shown in the earlier report, and will now deliver Russian oil to Hungary and Slovakia.
Well, a bitter feud over the pipeline pitted Hungary's nationalist premier Viktor Orban against Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, stalling crucial funds for Kyiv. Outgoing Hungarian Prime Minister Orbán and the Slovak government had accused Ukraine of delaying repairs on the pipeline. However, Ukraine denied the accusation. Ukrainian President Zelensky welcomed EU's decision and called it the right signal to pressure Russia to end the war.
Well, European nations also agreed to the bloc's 20th package of sanctions on Russia, which had also been delayed by the spat with Hungary. The package aims to curb the Russian economy to reduce Moscow's ability to finance its war in Ukraine.
Well, I think it will not be easy at all because, as I said, the Ukrainian needs are huge, are still enormous, and we have to provide them with a much larger financial support, also a more sustainable support. It's a provocation that they have to almost run out of money before the next package is sent to Kiev.
Extreme heat is threatening global food systems, with farmers unable to work outdoors.
This also alongside livestock being under stress and crop yields falling. The United Nations has warned this has put livelihoods of over 1 billion people at risk. Experts said food supply in some areas was being pushed to the brink by increasingly common and severe heat waves on land and at sea.
Moreover, a joint report by the Food and Agriculture Organization and the World Meteorological Organization estimates extreme heat is already causing 500 billion work hours to be lost each year.
So much so that farmers could find it impossible to work safely for as many as 250 days of the year in regions already facing extreme heat, including much of India and South Asia, tropical sub-Saharan Africa and swathes of Central and South America. Extreme heat is also killing livestock, cutting dairy yields and making pigs and chickens fall sick.
Not just on land, heat waves in the oceans are suffocating fish by reducing the level of dissolved oxygen in water, which is driving sharp population drops. What possibly is the way out? Of course, that's the question that arises. According to the joint report, heat waves are often predictable, which means early warnings and smart tech can help farmers act before disaster hits.
Pope Leo arrived in eastern Equatorial Guinea and is now in the last leg of his Africa tour.
Well, the Pope urged to bridge the gap between the privileged and the disadvantaged during a mass attended by the president and his embezzlement convicted son.
Pope is not just a father to us, he is our spiritual father. So he comes to reassure us that we are not orphans, we are children, and he is our father. In our suffering, he suffers with us, and in our joy, he rejoices with us. His blessing is meant to bring the family together so that we may once again be one family, as God has called us to be.
The Creator has endowed you with great natural wealth. I urge you to cooperate so that they can be a blessing for everyone. May the Lord help you to increasingly become a society where each person, according to their respective responsibilities, works in the service of the common good and not for personal interests, overcoming the inequalities between the privileged and the disadvantaged.
All right, viewers, slipping into a short break. This is World DNA. We will be coming back with more reports on the other side. Polling is underway for the 234-member assembly in the southern state of Tamil Nadu in India. The polls are being seen as a direct contest between the ruling DMK-led alliance and the NDA. We'll bring you all the details with the ground report as well. Stay with us.
Get the latest updates.
Destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is one.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is one. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION World is One.
In this rapidly changing world, is your health keeping pace? Best practices and breakthroughs busting the hype with real insights. The timeless power of yoga and ancient healing. Good food, good mood. Small steps, big impact. Your health matters. Only on WION World is One. Because nothing matters more.
Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires, alliances, power never stands still. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Damascus to Doha, the West Asia Post cuts through the chaos to reveal the region that shapes the world. Because what happens in West Asia never stays in West Asia. This is the West Asia Post, the region's story, the world's impact.
Vielleicht nur als dem Ausland
Welcome back, viewers. Thank you for staying with us. This is World DNA. You're watching WION The World as one. Let's start with a quick look at the headlines.
Iranian state TV shows footage of armed soldiers boarding 2 container ships in the Strait of Hormuz after the IRGC confirms that it targeted 3 ships and seized 2, accusing them of violating the blockade.
Iran's president slams US for hypocritical and contradictory behavior, says Tehran welcomes dialogue and agreement, calls bad faith, siege and threats the main obstacles to genuine negotiation.
White House says US President Donald Trump does not view Iran's seizure of 2 container ships as a ceasefire violation, arguing that the vessels were international and not American or Israeli.
Iran says it will not reopen the Strait of Hormuz as long as the US naval blockade continues, with Iranian Parliament Speaker Ghalibaf saying a complete ceasefire only has meaning if it is not violated by such a blockade.
Israel and Lebanon to hold a new round of talks in Washington today, with Beirut planning to request a 1-month extension of this ceasefire. Israel says that it has no serious disagreements with Lebanon, calling for cooperation against Hezbollah.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says he will not resign over his appointment of Peter Mandelson as UK envoy to Washington, denies misleading lawmakers and calls the issue resolved, despite admitting it was an error of judgment.
Turkish parliament votes to prevent children under the age of 15 from accessing social media platforms, and the new law also requires digital platforms to introduce age verification systems to enforce restriction.
Peru's foreign and defense ministers resign in protest after interim president pauses a $3.5 billion deal to buy 24 US F-16 fighter jets, questioning it could damage country's credibility as trading partner.
Well, traders once again placed a $430 million bet on falling crude prices shortly before Trump announced an extension to the Iran ceasefire on Tuesday. That marks the 3rd major well-timed trade this month.
In the southern state of Tamil Nadu, polling is underway for the 234-member assembly. The polls are being seen as a direct contest between the ruling DMK-led alliance and the NDA, in which the AIA-DMK is the principal force along with the BJP.
And actor-turned-politician Vijay is also in the fray this time, seen by many as the wild card in Tamil Nadu's politics this time. Incumbent Chief Minister M.K. Stalin is eyeing to script electoral history by etching his name among the rare politicians who have managed to retain power in Tamil Nadu. Since the 1970s, political power has alternated between the DMK and the AIA-DMK. The trend was disrupted only in 2016 when late Jayalalitha of the AIA-DMK won consecutive terms.
The stakes are also high for the AIA-DMK, which suffered setbacks in the 2021 Assembly polls and 2024 Lok Sabha elections. The Assembly polls are being seen as a battle for relevance and survival for the party. The elections are also a huge test for Idapadi K. Palaniswamy, whose political future and leadership is likely to depend on the outcome.
But the ultimate X factor in the polls is actor-politician Vijay, whose party TVK is eyeing to shake off the dominance of the Dravidian parties in Tamil Nadu's politics. While the actor drew massive crowds during his election rallies, the Herculean task of converting them into votes begins today. Since 1991, no party other than the DMK and the AIADMK has managed to get a vote share in double digits in Tamil Nadu.
That said, let's take a look at some of the big names who are on the ballot today. First up, we have DMK leader and Chief Minister M.K. Stalin, who is contesting from the Kolathur constituency. And then there is his son, Utanayadi Stalin, who continues to play a key role in the party's campaign. Representing the AIADMK is Idapadi K. Palaniswamy, who is contesting from his stronghold in Salem district.
Actor-turned-politician Vijay is contesting from the Perambur and Tiruchirappalli East. Siman is leading Nam Tamilar Kachi, while from the PMK, the Bharatiya Janata Party has fielded key leaders, including Vanati Srinivasan and L. Murugan, both aiming to expand the party's footprint in the state.
Now, our principal correspondent Siddharth MP is joining us live from Chennai. Siddharth, what can you tell us about the situation there? What is the voter sentiment? How is the turnout?
In fact, it's been quite enthusiastic over the last 1 hour. People are coming out in good numbers, and as you can see behind us, there are serpentine queues outside polling booths. So we are at a booth outside Chennai, and you can see the kind of enthusiasm that prevails among the people over here. All of them are extremely enthusiastic about coming out in large numbers and voting. And perhaps this is also reflective of the fact that as the day progresses, the peak summer heat would begin. So a good number of people would want to escape the heat, especially senior citizens and those with children. They would perhaps want to come a little early in the day and start voting. So obviously things are going very smooth, and the kind of mood out here is upbeat, and everybody is enthusiastic about fulfilling their democratic right and their democratic duty.
Siddharth, there's been high-profile visits from national and regional leaders all across Tamil Nadu. It's been going on since a number of weeks. Give us a sense of how the campaigning has looked so far, and then we'll go talk further.
See, especially over the last 1 week, the campaigning hit a complete peak because there was repeat visits by Prime Minister Modi, by Home Minister Amit Shah from the NDA. And in fact, the NDA also did something interesting. They brought Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister and one of their major allies in Chandrababu Naidu from Andhra Pradesh. He was here in different parts of Tamil Nadu. Most recently, he was in Chennai also campaigning. This is a very strategic move because Andhra Pradesh has a very close connect with Tamil Nadu. And Chandrababu Naidu also campaigned by saying that he also is a Dravidian and he also belongs to the South. So this is actually seen as NDA's attempt to show that they are also well entrenched in the region, because the battle here has been portrayed by the DMK, where they're saying it's us versus an outside party, whereas the NDA has taken up the strategy of having Chandrababu Naidu campaign for them in Tamil Nadu, because there's also a significant number of Telugu-speaking voters in the state. So bringing Naidu to campaign here also adds to that flavor. Then in addition to that, as far as the opposition is concerned, there's been Rahul Gandhi who's campaigned. Then of course there's been Congress Chief Mallikarjun Kharge who's campaigned. Thereafter there's also been former Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal who came and campaigned in support of Chief Minister M.K. Stalin. Then in addition to that, there's also been Asaduddin Owaisi, the Member of Parliament from Hyderabad, who put out a video message supporting M.K. Stalin. So this is seen as a crucial battle, because opposition states see Tamil Nadu as a strong bulwark against the BJP nationally, because this is one of those rare states where the BJP has struggled to make inroads either alone or even through their allies. In the last two parliamentary polls, refer to 2019 or 24, the BJP and their allies have virtually been swept out by the DMK Congress-led alliance. So this is what makes Tamil Nadu special. The opposition sees Tamil Nadu as a state that resists the BJP and their allies. So, of course, this time things are very different because this is a state election. In parliamentary election, things work a little differently. But in a state election, certainly the contest is between the NDA and the DMK-led alliance.
Correct. BJP has struggled largely, but anti-incumbency is largely ruled who wins next time. And Jaya Lalita was the only one who was able to break that streak. Here, with the TVK also being in the fray, with Vijay also in the fray, do you really see chances, or how do you, anything that you picked up from people that you've interacted with?
So to talk about precedent, the DMK in the 60s and the early 70s got two back-to-back terms. That was back in the 60s and 70s. Thereafter, when ADMK was formed in 1972, just the years after that, MGR, the AIADMK founder and supremo, he also got repeat terms. And of course, thereafter, in the 50 years after that, it's always alternated. But again, in 2011 and 2016, under the leadership of J. Jayalalitha, ADMK came to power twice. But of course, you're right in saying that over the last 50 years, the DMK has not got repeat terms. So MK Stalin is looking to buck that trend. He's looking to break that jinx. He's looking to ensure that his party can come to power yet again. In fact, the focus of Stalin's campaign has also been on significant welfare measures that they've doled out, particularly to vulnerable sections of society, including the 1,000 rupees per month that they've doled out to almost 1.3 crore women, free bus rides for women, laptops for school students. So these are some of the strong welfare measures. And he's also made a development push, citing Tamil Nadu's growth numbers of exceeding 11.19% and saying that, we're not just focusing on welfare, but this is also a state which is the growth engine for India itself as a whole. So this has been the DMK's campaign. But if we are to compare, let's also keep in mind that this is a poll where there is a disruptor, and it's not just a two-way contest, it's a three-way contest. So we'll have to wait to see really what is going to be Vijay's impact, because the youth vote and the women vote are extremely crucial, Shivan.
No, a disruptor has been introduced this time, and it's a high-profile disruptor. Vijay's profile and Vijay's background, his own fame is definitely going to be playing a role. We'll get to know soon enough. That was Siddharth MP, very meticulously encapsulating all that's been going on in Tamil Nadu. We'll get to know more. We'll connect with you again, Siddharth.
They streaked across the night without warning. Brilliant fireballs lit skies from America to Canada, capping a surge in Meteor sightings that has stunned scientists.
Well, March delivered an extraordinary wave of glowing objects blazing through the atmosphere. And now experts are asking a simple question. Why now? More in this next report. Take a look.
A flash above the horizon. A burning trail across the dark. Then silence. Jason Jenkins was driving to his job in Portland, Oregon, when a bright green streak beamed across the sky, captured by the camera on his dashboard.
It was like just a bright flash, and so it kind of catches you off guard. And so I was like, well, what was that? And then I kind of looked around a little bit, noticed that other cars just kept going the same speed and like it didn't happen. And so I'm going to do the same thing and treat it like it didn't happen.
Throughout March, people across multiple regions reported bright fireballs tearing through the sky in what experts describe as a record-breaking month for sightings. The sky, it seemed, had come alive. Fireballs are exceptionally bright meteors. They occur when pieces of space rock enter Earth's atmosphere at tremendous speed and burn from friction, producing intense light. Some last only seconds. Others break apart in spectacular bursts visible across vast distances. Scientists are now examining why reports surged so sharply in early 2026. One possibility is simple. More objects may be entering the atmosphere. Earth regularly passes through streams of debris left behind comets and collisions in the asteroid belt. If our planet intersects a denser patch, meteor activity can rise. Another explanation is modern technology. Doorbell cameras, dash cams, smartphones, and sky-watching networks now capture events that once went unseen. A fireball over a remote town decades ago might have vanished into memory. But now it is filmed, uploaded, and analyzed within minutes. Meteors offer clues to the early solar system. Many are ancient fragments left over from planetary formation more than 4 billion years ago. Each one is a messenger from cosmic history. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And market manipulation allegations have resurfaced after traders placed $430 billion on crude price falls on Tuesday.
Those wagers came just minutes ahead of President Trump's Iran ceasefire extension announcement. The bearish bets were placed between 1954 and 1956 GMT, which is 7:54 and 7:56. Just 15 minutes after those bets, Trump announced an indefinite extension to the 2-week temporary truce at around 8:10 GMT.
But following the news, Brent crude futures dropped, hitting a low of $96.83 per barrel. And following the news, Brent crude futures dropped, hitting a low of 96.83. As I mentioned earlier, following the news, Brent crude And as we mentioned previously, on April 17th, about 20 minutes before the Iranian foreign minister's social media post that Hormuz would be open, traders placed $760 million in bets on a fall in oil prices. And on cue, crude crashed over 11% to test the $90 a barrel price. Similarly, on the 7th of April, little further before that, $950 million were bet just hours before Trump's announcement of a temporary 2-week ceasefire. Oil prices fell nearly 16% from above $113 per barrel. And then on the 23rd of March, 15 minutes before Trump announced a delay and this was a delay in attacking Iranian power infrastructure, anonymous traders suddenly placed $500 million on a drop in oil prices, and that's exactly what happened.
The latest Iran ceasefire bets are not the first instance of such trades. Newly created polymarket accounts with massive bets have come under the scanner. Before the start of the war, 6 to 12 accounts, mostly new, placed roughly $90,000 in bets hours before the US struck Iran on February 28. Those bets earned over $1 million in profit. Earlier in the year, just hours before Trump announced the removal of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, one account created on Polymarket placed bets of that event happening. That bet earned $400,000.
The U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission is investigating those suspiciously well-timed trades in the oil market just before key geopolitical decisions. But those wagers, those bets, bring an important question to the fore. Is it possible to make specific bets just minutes before key announcements without having insider knowledge? Oil prices stayed above $100 a barrel for the second straight day as the Hormuz deadlocked weighed on sentiment despite an extension to the truce.
Well, traffic through Hormuz, it is at near standstill after the waterway's brief and confused reopening, driving wild swings in crude markets. Benchmark Brent crude traded at around $103 per barrel. Crude markets have been on edge since the start of the Iran war late February. Over the past week, the wild gyrations is a direct reflection of the broad uncertainty in West Asia peace discussions. Brent has surged from around $60 per barrel at the start of the year to above $100 due to the Iran war. At one point during the war last month, the benchmark surged to about $120 per barrel, but has since leveled off below $100. We look into technology now. UK's National Cybersecurity Centre has said the country should prepare for a rise in cyber attacks linked to hostile states.
And this as the government urges tech firms to help build AI-powered defences. The warning comes from Richard Horne, Chief Executive of the Cybersecurity Agency.
Horne said the agency continues to handle about 4 nationally significant cyber incidents each week. He said the most serious attacks are increasingly linked to governments rather than just criminal groups. Criminal threats such as ransomware remain the most common risk facing organizations across the UK.
Horne was speaking at the government's annual conference in Glasgow. Horne said many of the most serious incidents originate directly or indirectly from nation states including China, Iran and Russia. He added that such activity is targeting Britain and its European partners.
He also warned that the UK is living through the most seismic geopolitical shift in modern history. The country's domestic spy agency MI5 said last year authorities had disrupted more than 20 Iran-linked plots since 2022. Some of these incidents targeted individuals living in Britain, and he warned that in the event of a conflict, the UK could face large-scale hacktivist attacks. He said such campaigns could cause disruption similar to major ransomware attacks.
However, he added that victims may not have the option of paying to restore systems. Horne also said advances in artificial intelligence are expected to accelerate cyber attacks and that AI could enable faster identification of system vulnerabilities. However, he added that the technology also offers opportunities to strengthen cyber defenses. And in sports, around a decade ago, Leicester City, they were the talk of the football world. A fairy tale run saw them lift the Premier League title in 2016.
But fast forward 10 years, Leicester have now been relegated to the third tier of English football. The Foxes needed a win against Hull City to keep their survival slim hopes alive, but they were held to a 2-2 draw in front of their home fans, a result that confirmed their relegation to League One only for the second time in their history. It also marks a third relegation in 4 seasons, having dropped out of the Premier League in 2023 and again in 2025. The 6-point deduction in February for breaching the English Football League's financial rules proved a hammer blow, one they never recovered from.
After defying 5,000 to 1 odds to win the Premier League in 2016, Leicester reached the Champions League quarterfinals the very next season and lifted the FA Cup in 2021. But that golden era is now a distant memory. With Jamie Vardy's departure at the end of last season, the final link to that title-winning squad is gone.
Now the Foxes will play in the third tier of English football for only the second time in their 142-year history, capping an astonishing decline over the past 5 years.
And Lionsgate premiered its Michael Jackson biopic, Michael, in Hollywood.
The film stars Michael Jackson's nephew, Jafar Jackson, who was 12 when his uncle died in 2009. The premiere was a high-fashion event which saw the arrival of the best personalities from Hollywood, music and fashion. Along with them, the entire Jackson family joined the cast and crew of Michael. It was an emotional moment for the family to see the singer being brought back to life by Jafar Jackson.
Day one, it's been a big responsibility because I knew that this story, you would need to really go through all the little details and pull it off in a way that will make the public and audiences want to get drawn into it. And with that, I wanted to go into it not leaving any stone unturned. So focusing on everything, all the little details, the little nuances with the performances, the off-camera things, so doing all.
Well, the premiere event also featured some of the most iconic costumes of the singer, and those costumes have defined and even dominated a complete era. The film, directed by Antoine Fuqua, follows the rise of the king of pop from lead singer of the Motown group Jackson 5, made up of him and his brothers, to Michael Jackson striking out on a solo career with hits like Thriller and Beat It. All right, viewers, that's a wrap on this edition of World DNA. Thanks so much for staying with us. Short break now. This is WION World is One. Come right back.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION.
5 states, one powerful voice. From Tamil Nadu to West Bengal. Kerala to Assam. Every vote shapes the future. Get the election pulse only on WION. In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION World is One.
In this rapidly changing world, is your health keeping pace? Best practices and breakthroughs busting the hype with real insights. The timeless power of yoga and ancient healing. Good food, good mood. Small steps, big impact. Your health matters. Only on WION World is One. Because nothing matters more.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across